I didn't realize I was slowly turning into the kind of person I used to judge. The kind of person who blamed everything around them, who wasted days scrolling through meaningless things, and who thought they were smart just because they could talk confidently. It hit me one evening when my friend looked at me during a small argument and said, "You think you're so intelligent, but you don't even listen." That sentence felt like a slap across my face. I laughed it off at that moment, but later that night, lying in bed, his words echoed in my head like an alarm bell. I started wondering, could my everyday habits actually be signs that I wasn't as smart as I thought? Have you ever realized that the small things you do every day might quietly be making you less intelligent? Because that's exactly what I was about to find out. My name's Amir, and for most of my life, I thought I was a clever person. I did okay in school, people often came to me for advice, and I loved talking about psychology, motivation, and intelligence. I thought that meant I was intelligent. But life has this funny way of humbling you when you least expect it. About a year ago, I started noticing that despite all my knowledge, my life wasn't improving. I was constantly stressed. My relationships were falling apart, and I felt mentally exhausted even though I wasn't really doing much. I told myself I was just tired, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. It started with small things, like I used to complain a lot. If it was too hot, I'd complain. If I didn't get what I wanted, I'd complain. If someone disagreed with me, I'd argue. I didn't realize I was turning every inconvenience into a reason to feel like the world was against me. My brain had become addicted to negativity. Every complaint was like a tiny dopamine hit, a way to release my frustration instead of fixing the problem. One day, my sister told me, "You always sound angry." That I wasn't angry. I was just expressing myself. But later, I understood the truth. I wasn't expressing intelligence. I was expressing helplessness. I also noticed I couldn't focus anymore. I'd sit down to read, and 5 minutes later, I'd be scrolling through social media, hopping from one meaningless video to another. I called it taking a break, but really it was my mind begging for distraction, because thinking deeply was becoming too uncomfortable. I used to watch motivational clips and tell myself I was learning. But let's be honest, watching 100 short videos about success doesn't make you successful. It only makes you feel productive for 5 minutes. Real intelligence takes patience, and I had none. The worst part? I thought I was open-minded, but I wasn't. If anyone disagreed with my opinion, I'd instantly get defensive. I didn't listen to understand, I listened to reply. I'd interrupt people mid-sentence, just to prove my point. I thought debating made me smart, but what it really did was expose my insecurity. Deep down, I couldn't stand being wrong. I remember once arguing with my dad about something as silly as car mileage. He said his old car gave better average than my new one. I laughed and told him he didn't know how to measure properly. Later, when I actually checked, I realized he was right. And instead of apologizing, I just stayed quiet. That's when I realized intelligence isn't about being right all the time. It's about having the humility to admit when you're wrong. Another habit that silently made me dumber was overconfidence. I can't explain how many times I thought I knew something just because I'd read a few articles or watched a video. I'd talk as if I were an expert. There's a name for it, the Dunning-Kruger effect, when people with little knowledge think they know everything. That was me. I didn't even realize I was living in an illusion of intelligence. I was confusing confidence with competence. I'd tell people how to live their lives, but my own was a mess. Around this time, I also started noticing my impulsiveness. I'd buy things I didn't need. I'd eat junk food even when I promised myself not to. I'd stay up till 3 a.m., watching random videos, and then complain the next day that I couldn't focus. My willpower was fading, and I didn't even see it as a problem. I used to joke that I work best under pressure, but the truth was, I'd just become lazy and disorganized. Intelligent people plan, they think ahead, but I was living in constant chaos. The realization came slowly and painfully. One evening I was scrolling on my phone when a video popped up, Habits that Reveal Low Intelligence. I almost scrolled past it, but something made me click. As I listened, I felt my stomach twist. Every single point described me complaining, overconfidence, lack of curiosity, impulsiveness, and blaming others. I remember staring at the screen, speechless. It felt like someone had read my mind. For a moment, I wanted to deny it, but deep down, I knew it was true. That night, I sat quietly in my room and asked myself, how did I get here? How did someone who prided himself on being smart, fall into these habits that were actually signs of low intelligence? So that's where I was sitting there, realizing I had a choice. I could ignore it and keep living in my illusion, or I could face the truth and change. Before I tell you what I did next, I want to ask you something. If you found out that your daily habits were silently lowering your intelligence, would you have the courage to change them? Or would you keep pretending everything's fine? Think about it, because I had to make that exact choice. At first, I didn't even know where to start. I didn't want to admit my flaws to anyone, so I started observing myself quietly. Every time I complained, I caught myself and replaced it with gratitude. Instead of saying, "This is annoying," I'd force myself to say, "At least I have this opportunity." It felt fake at first, but after a few weeks, it started changing the way I saw things. The more I practiced it, the lighter my mind felt. It was like cleaning dust off a mirror. I could see clearly again. Then, I tackled my distractions. I deleted half the apps on my phone. I made a rule: no scrolling before finishing at least one useful thing a day. The first few days were torture. I kept reaching for my phone like an addict. My brain craved that easy dopamine. But slowly, my focus started improving. I began reading again. The first book I finished after months felt like an achievement. It reminded me what deep thinking feels like. You know that quiet satisfaction when you finish something meaningful? I'd missed that feeling for years. Next, I worked on listening. I made a conscious effort to let people talk without interrupting. It was hard, my ego hated it. But as I listened more, I started learning more. People opened up to me in ways they never had before. My relationships improved. And I realized how much I'd missed by always trying to prove myself. Listening doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. Another thing I changed was my overconfidence. I started admitting when I didn't know something. Instead of pretending, I'd ask questions. It felt awkward at first, but it opened new doors for learning. I discovered how liberating it feels to say, "I don't know, can you explain it to me?" That one sentence changed everything. People started respecting me more, not less. Because real intelligence isn't about knowing everything. It's about being willing to learn anything. I also learned to control my impulses. I began setting small goals and sticking to them. Waking up early, journaling, exercising. Things that once felt impossible became part of my routine. And every time I kept a promise to myself, I felt a little stronger. Self-control isn't natural. It's trained. And every act of discipline builds your mental strength like a muscle. Months went by, and something beautiful started happening. My thoughts became clearer, my confidence more grounded, my focus sharper. I wasn't reacting emotionally to everything anymore. I was thinking before speaking, planning before acting, and feeling genuinely calm inside. The people around me noticed it too. One day, that same friend who once told me, "You don't even listen," smiled and said, "You've changed." That moment meant everything. It wasn't just about being smart. It was about being aware. Looking back now, I see that intelligence isn't about IQ scores or big words. It's about habits, the things we do when no one's watching. Every time we complain, avoid responsibility, or resist learning, we lower our potential. But every time we reflect, stay curious, and stay humble, we grow. The difference between a foolish mind and a wise one isn't talent, it's awareness. And I'm not perfect, not even close. I still catch myself falling into old patterns. But now I know how to pull myself back. Awareness is like a light. Once it turns on, you can't go back to the dark. I realize that most of what we call intelligence is just emotional maturity in disguise, patience, curiosity, and humility. If you've made it this far, I want you to really think about your own life. What habits are holding you back? Are you constantly distracted? Are you afraid to be wrong? Do you complain more than you act? These aren't small issues. They define the quality of your thinking. So here's my advice. Don't just chase intelligence. Build it through your daily actions. Because every thought, every choice, and every reaction shapes your mind into what it becomes tomorrow. So, yeah, that's my story. I wasn't as smart as I thought I was, but I'm getting there. Slowly. One habit at a time. If you've ever felt the same, just remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being aware. Awareness is the real intelligence. Like this video if you believe awareness is more powerful than IQ. Subscribe if you want to hear more real-life stories that make you think. And share your own experiences in the comments. I'd love to know what habits you've noticed in yourself that you're trying to change. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next story.